you've spoken about in the past how there's sometimes a divergence between what Warren Buffett says and what he actually does. Can you give some examples of that?
Ah, that's true. I have said that. And it was told to me by a guy who was a senior insurance executive at National Indemnity or one of the insurance companies. And so he was a very close observer of Warren. And I cannot say that anything is coming up for me right now. But I think that in general, it's a really, really good rule to follow with anyone, because there are many reasons why somebody might say something but not act on it. And I had some. It was, I don't know that it was scurrilous, but I in a couple of videos I talked, not extensively, but I talked about cryptocurrency, and that I was divergent to Charlie, at least, on cryptocurrency. And I kind of knew that would make people sort of go, "Oh my God, Guy Spier talking about crypto." But there's some guy who created a video that's like, Guy Spier gets into crypto, Guy goes long crypto, and the fact of the matter is I don't own any crypto. But that's what they heard. And I think, by the way, I don't think it's smart for somebody like me to do that too often, because you're kind of misleading people. Well, I'm not misleading people. I'm being honest. I was just talking about crypto, but at the same time, I was kind of yanking people's chain, and it's better to speak in a more sincere way about what one's up to and not do that. But I do think that Warren Buffett, as a prominent person, it's often easier to say something even though you're not doing it. And yeah, I'm sorry, I've blanked out. There was an example, but maybe if I have it, I'll come back to you and you'll put it in the show notes. So.
Sounds excellent. And you've spoken another sort of investment strategy you have is looking for geographic follower investments, where maybe you have a very strong business model in one country, and you're looking for if you can find a company that has that type of business model in, let's say, a more emerging country or in another country. I think you've spoken about some of the credit rating agencies in India before, but do you have maybe other examples of these geographic follower investments you've made?
Yeah, I mean, look, so I'll give you one example is the exchange business, stock exchanges. So it's an extraordinary business, and it's kind of a call on all the stocks that are traded on the exchange. And it's very inflation protected and has extremely high returns, highly regulated. It's very hard to replace the exchange. And so, you can just look for exchange companies around the world. You can look at credit. So there's corporate credit ratings, and there are some ratings companies based outside of the North America and Western Europe. And then there are personal ratings companies. So people give personal credit scores, companies in the US like Equifax. And those tend to be kind of interesting and pretty good businesses. And then, in a certain way, all branded goods are like that. So look, some branded goods are kind of like global brands like Mars or Kit Kat. But once you've understood that branded goods is a good deal, I mean, there are some incredible, the investment that I had in Maotai, the Chinese liquor manufacturer, was completely based on my understanding of brands in the United States. So, but I think that also the world has changed. I think that when I started doing that, there weren't that many people doing that. I think now all of that knowledge has been, I was sitting in New York and I was like, oh my God, credit ratings are good businesses. And so let's go look for credit rating businesses around the planet. Now you don't need to be sitting in New York with my background to be able to do that. And so a lot of people have done that. And so I'm not sure that I think it's an example of an idea or an approach to invest that worked for a while, but is probably not a useful way to approach anymore. I think also, Itai, I've become more selective, both in terms of countries I want to invest in and in terms of the kinds of business that I want to invest in. So, I used to have an investment in a Filipino company called Alaska Milk. There's a phenomenal brand, 98% market share. And I hope that I would actually do that investment again, but I'm not even looking now. But yeah, so I'd be far more reluctant to kind of apply that kind of reasoning, and got to my view is that you can't just be Walter Schloss 30 years after there are very few nets left. You've got to keep updating your thinking, trying to figure it out, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that you've spoken about in the past, you've had interns. I don't know if you have any interns right now. What do you look for when you hire interns? And also, what is your internship process like?
Yeah. So I'm not very good at employing people. In fact, my phenomenal assistant, the only reason why I managed to get her to working with me is that somebody else did the hiring process, because it's well documented that many people are just, because they look to find somebody that's just like them. And that often doesn't work when you're building a team of people who all have different skills and bring different things to the table. So, and you know, I came to the conclusion a while ago, certainly at the time that I wrote my book, that I didn't want full-time analysts. At the same time, so there's a part of the kind of internships is, you know, I think it would be wrong for me not to try and create opportunity for people, opportunities that I lacked. Nobody was interested in having me around their financial institution, but I've taken a certain amount of pleasure from, you know, but there's a very small number of people that I can do that with. It's kind of like, you know, I wish I could say there's a process, but it's kind of like random, you know, and excuse me. And part of what happens, I think, is that these interns, the ones that I'm creating an opportunity for them, they come for a very short period of time, like 2 or 3 weeks. So I think the 2 or 3 weeks is enough for them to learn a lot, and it becomes quite tiring for us. I think that you know, when it comes to bouncing ideas off people, I kind of don't want that person to be my employee, you know, or I don't want them to be my intern. And I kind of find those people through running my own podcast series, through running my ValueX conference, from sending research to people. And in a certain way, that's even better because it's free. At least I don't have to pay them a salary. And you know, it's on demand. So I mean, on the other side, it's on demand, but only when they have the bandwidth to deal with me, and they may not have the bandwidth. But then also what I've been learning is that there are many aspects of the investment research that I do that can be turned into a process. And then I can pull somebody in who's not just the ultimate creative, analytical business mind, but somebody who's actually enjoys fitting their work into some element of process that I've created. But I can't say I've done a very good job of it. I think that different people also have different destinies. Some people want to build big investment firms, and some people don't. And I think I'm in the category of somebody who doesn't, I don't have the skills, and I kind of don't. It's not what would give me joy, if you like. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what's your advice to students on making their investment checklist?
Yeah. Yeah, you know, it's really straightforward. Look for every mistake that you've made, look for every mistake that other people have made, and try to find what was available to be seen at the time that you or they made the investment, and then add that to your checklist, you know. And so, you know, I mean, you can imagine, you know, I've had one bankruptcy in my portfolio, and I did not pay attention to how the leverage had built up at the company as it unfolded. So, you know, checklist items about leverage is really important. There's something I describe in my book, you know, this management team of a for-profit education company where one of the management team was going through a nasty, bitter divorce. And I kind of realized that when people go through nasty, bitter divorces, it's all consuming, and the probability that they can make rational decisions around their business or their role in as a CEO and as a custodian and fiduciary of the investor's money was far less likely. So I added the checklist item: is the CEO going through a nasty divorce? And so, you know, each one of those, and in a certain way, adding a checklist item can be cathartic. because it kind of expunges the pain of the mistake that you've made. But then also to look at other people's mistakes. I mean, for example, one of the lessons for me, I mean, we'll see how the investment unfolds, but a lesson for me in Seritage is, when you assume that a change is possible, for example, repurposing retail real estate to residential mixed office, that's fine, but what's the cost of doing that? If the cost is 1 or 2% of the value of the asset, not a problem. But what if the cost is 50% of the value of the asset, or even 100%? And so that's so there's a few checklist items, but it's pretty straightforward to do it actually. And I think that there's far more benefit to doing it yourself than getting somebody else, just taking somebody else's.